Jim Murray. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. I'm the program director for the Bachelor of Media Design program here at Media Design School. It's a 3-year degree program with specializations in motion design, graphic design, and interactive design. And I'm just going to take you through a little presentation about the program itself, and then afterwards, if you have any questions, we'll have a little Q&A, and hopefully between Sabrina, who's on hand here, and myself, we'll be able to answer any of the questions that you have. So, little introduction. I'm on the slide at the moment, and hopefully everyone can see these slides. I'm at the bottom left-hand corner of this slide, Jim Murray. As a little introduction, I suppose, to how I came to be program director at Media Design School. I came here, obviously not Kiwi, came here from Ireland, and then worked in London for a number of years, grew up in around Essex, worked in London as a designer when I finished university, and then travelled to New Zealand and was employed here at a place called Interbrand, which are a large branding agency. And I was just design director there for a number of years, leading a team, designing branding, packaging, and promotion across all sorts of different clients. Interbrand are a large international branding agency, and they're owned by DDB, which are a large advertising agency. So I wasn't too familiar with New Zealand, so I had to start looking for some people to come into my work at the time, and junior designers specifically. And I reached out to a place called Media Design School, amongst others, and found that Media Design School had a really high caliber of students who understood the technical parameters of design, but also the contextual and theory behind design itself as well. So they were teaching both really well, and employed a number of graduates, and then ended up here running the program. So that story, by and large, of people coming from industry and then switching over into education is largely the same across all of the cohort that you can see in front of you. We have lecturers on the program like Christophe and Jocelyn, who are from France, bit of an international flavour. We've got Don and Tammy, who are originally from Malaysia and KL, and William from Indonesia. And we have some Kiwis, James, Kennedy, who's one of our contractors, who I used to work with in agencies, Interbrand, and Ashley Boyd, who went and worked in Australia for a number of years, was a student of ours about 8 years ago, a long time ago, graduate of this very program, and then went out and worked in Australia for a number of years, came back, did a teacher training, and now he's working with us in the program. Just to give you a little bit of a flavour of where different people come from, different specialisms across motion, graphic and interactive design. And of course, we here at Media Design School, we have excellent support for our counsellors and disability advisor, Anna Bolin, and Lita, who is our Mardi and Pacifica success coach. So there's a lot of support here, which I just wanted to acknowledge those people as well. Media Design School has been running for a number of years. I had no grey in my beard when I started here. It's 25 years, or it's more than 25 years now. We had our 25-year anniversary a couple of years ago. We are in Wynyard Quarter. For anyone who's joining us from overseas or is not familiar with Auckland, that's a little area that's down in the innovations precinct. So it's a big glass box. You can go and look at it online. Beautiful building right by the water. And the top floor is occupied by Google. The rest of the floors are Media Design School. On the bottom, there are a couple of design agencies, and we have Microsoft and a number of others, DNA, downstairs, an interactive and UX agency. A lot of our students work around here as well, so it's really handy for bringing former alumni in, or alumni to come back and be guest speakers, and it's an excellent area. So if you're ever here and you do join the program and you want to come to campus, I would encourage you to do so. It's your campus as well. So one thing I wanted to point out, and I'm presuming there'll be people who are joining this session who maybe are intending to study online with us, and some of you may be looking to study face-to-face. We have both options here at Media Design School. But I wanted to point out a couple of things that are very different about the program. And the first one I just wanted to point out is that we have been awarded Adobe Creative Campus status. So that's the first and only at the moment creative campus from Adobe in New Zealand. And what that essentially means for you as students potentially coming onto the program is that you have full access to the Adobe Creative Suite on your personal device, as well as if you are going to attend the campus at some point, here in our labs on campus. So we have labs here on campus that have brand new Macs in them that have full access to Adobe Creative Cloud. But on your personal device, let's say you come into campus and you've got a laptop, you will have Adobe Creative Cloud on your laptop, your own personal settings and login for that. If you're a remote student, exactly the same applies. And that gets us access to far more than probably you'll ever reach into. But of course, the cool programs are in there like Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, After Effects, and numerous others. Also, we are working with Adobe at the moment on the ability for our students, once they leave, to be able to have Adobe Creative Campus and Creative Cloud with them after they leave for a period of time. That's yet to be determined, but that's a pretty exciting prospect to come in the future as well. Another big point of difference for us is we are industry connected. A lot of schools talk about being industry connected these days. Media Design School, as I'm sure probably you're aware, is quite famous for being very industry connected. And we are, and I'll just run through a couple of things that, and this is only just the tip of the iceberg really, but top left-hand corner here is our students, part of the Designers Institute of New Zealand. So we have our students as part of the Designers Institute of New Zealand Student Council, and that's some of them pictured in that photo up there, and that's them out at a design agency, going through some mentorship, some guidance, and a little bit of portfolio review. The middle picture at the top is Manuel Papin from Mark's Design. He's the creative director there, and he joined 26 others for our internal portfolio review. So we have our students go out externally to industry at different events for Designers Institute of New Zealand, for Design Assembly, going out and having portfolio reviews, but we want to get everyone on the program through a portfolio review at some point in your study with us. It normally happens in year 3. And this is when we get industry in and they look through all of your work to ensure that to give you some pointers about what you could improve or what's working really well, and give you some interview sort of techniques as well. So we do that for every single student in year 3 as you're coming towards the end of your study. So that's what that is from. Top right-hand corner is one of our students who picked up gold at the Best Awards, and I'll talk a little bit further about that later on in the session. Bottom left-hand corner there is some of our students who were awarded a mentorship internship program at Rush. And so that's something that we organised this year, and we normally have a few of these things going on every year. We had an internship also at AE Live. AE Live are responsible for on-screen graphics for the recent US elections, for the last Rugby World Cup, for all sorts of other things, Pacific Nations Cup, sailing, all sorts of things. Identities for on-screen graphics. And Moving Image, we have an internship program with them, but also Rush went through a very sort of heavy collaborative process with us to ensure that those students that you see there were brought through a mentorship program, given briefs, and went to the agency and worked alongside people, had a mentor each assigned to them. So that was pretty cool. And we also have things like guest speakers, which are the normal sort of industry connection that people talk about. Here we have numerous guest speakers in talking about a whole raft of different subjects throughout the year. They are recorded and streamed live. They come into campus, they present to students here on campus, and it's also streamed live and recorded for online students. People like Mike Davison, who's the GM of design at Colenso, Live. We've had Adobe come in, John Penn II, one of the founders of Photoshop, all sorts of things come to the program. At the end of the year, your final year, you have a big graduate show, and that's just what that's alluding to, the final tile there. We've just had that in November here on campus with a huge turnout from industry. Another big difference for us in terms of industry connectivity is when we run a live brief, we require our collaborators that we're working with to come in and actually work with you very, very closely. So if you're in a team working on a live brief or a live project, the client will come in and they will do a client briefing, very much in the same way that they would do in industry. So they outline the parameters of the design problem that you'll be undertaking as a team, let's say. They leave that with you, you work on it, and then they come back at work in progress sessions. And there's normally 3 or 4 of those where the client comes back, collaborator comes back and gives you feedback on where you are in that cycle of the design process. So you're getting that feedback as you would inside a design agency on a real world brief. And these are real world briefs from quite high profile clients in the globally and domestically. And then a final presentation at the end where you wrap it all up and get some really good feedback to take your project further in the future and hopefully put in your portfolio. Some of the people that we've worked with in the past, there's all sorts of logos on the screen here, but essentially this year we worked with All Blacks, we've worked with ASB in the past, Kathmandu. We have worked with Stuff on the future of news, Les Mills on all bite-sized video content, and I'll go into who we worked with this year a little bit later in the presentation. Awards are really important to us, not because we like winning awards, but everyone likes winning awards. Really strategically, and everything in the program is strategic in that sense that, you know, we have people come in and review your portfolio. We have a portfolio component because really we want to give you all the different tools that you need so that when you finish the program, you can hit the ground running and hopefully get employment in the industry. And so another way strategically to do that is to enter awards. The idea behind this and my experience working in the industry myself is that if you achieve a finalist, a bronze, a silver, or a gold at the best awards, let's say in New Zealand, which are our premier awards for design, then that's going to set you above someone else who may be going for the same role. So really it's kind of strategic. And we do very, very well in the awards, and we have done for a number of years now, thankfully. So they're just some examples. They won gold and 6 silvers, 5 bronze and 5 finalists last year, and an international award at Creative Pool, based out of London in the UK, for one of our students' work. So jumping into the program itself, the first year is multidisciplinary. The reason behind the first year being multidisciplinary is based on some of the experience from lecturers and I working within the industry. When I left the industry and came here to work at Media Design School, although I still do some freelance work, the industry was, my job was across motion graphic and interactive design, even as a brand designer, packaging designer, in those sort of two areas. I still had to work with people and understand interactive design, so web design, web applications, interactivity. I also had to understand motion design. So very simply, for a brand designer, that might be something like Sky Sports, and how will the logo animate, how will the brand come to life when it's in a channel ident or on-screen graphics, for example. So you have to understand all these disciplines to then become an expert in one of them. So broad multidisciplinary scope in year one across motion, graphic, and interactive design, and we touch on all three. And then in the second year, you specialize in either motion, graphic, or interactive UX design. Little brief overview of multidisciplinary approach for year one. Very UX focused, understanding and unpacking design problems, understanding who the user is and their needs or want from that particular product or service, and then trying to deliver what that product or service, let's say, should be. Lots of design thinking exercises, ideation, craft, typography, and then core skill sets in terms of technical competency across motion, graphic, and interactive design, much as you would expect. Quite scarily, I suppose, but it's a good thing. We do have live briefs in year one. So when you come in, you will be tackling some live briefs in there. Some ones that we've done in the past are with Motat. We did one with Citrus Inc. a couple of years ago, a New Zealand band. We did one this year with another band. And we have all sorts of quick ideation exercises and summative assessments that are all based around trying to grow your skills as a designer. Things like book covers and all sorts of other wonderful things that you get your hands in year one. So a bit of a course overview. I won't go into every single component here. The things to note, I guess, in term one and term two, we're trying to build your competency, your technical knowledge, your theoretical knowledge across communication design. And then when you get into term three, we really kind of test some of that knowledge across motion, graphic, and interactive. So you get taught more content in all three of those majors, and you produce an outcome in all three of those majors. And how those all sync together for quite a major project that you'll achieve in year one. And then in term four, you go through this really sort of high-level creative exercise where you take on a creative media strategies campaign. So you produce a campaign in advertising context. Again, a lot of our students either go into design careers, big agencies, smaller agencies, in-house agencies. Some of them kind of traverse into the marketing world. Some of them go into UX, motion, interactive. And then some of them, in fact, quite a lot of them, are involved in some form of creative media strategy, so some advertising contexts. And so we have to teach that, and that's exactly what we do. Another thing that we do is professional and academic practices, which kind of does exactly what it says on the tin. It's getting students proficient with professional practice, really, in the industry and academic conventions. Year two, specializing either in motion design, graphic design, or interactive UX design. So you pick one of those and you'll get teamed up with a specialist in that particular area. You'll be studying in year one and year two and year three. Always in a class, always typical day, I guess, would involve you coming in. You might get a lecture. The lecture will be relevant to the content that you're producing at the time. The lecturers who are teaching you will also be technically competent and industry ready. And so they will be able to talk to you about your design project that you're working on, both in terms of its theoretical kind of content, how it's positioned, but also how to technically execute that inside the program. So they're not separate people you're talking to. There's no kind of professor of design who only understands theory and then some kind of, technician who understands technical, those two things together, because of course in design those two things aren't separate, they are together in practice, and so that's what we do. When you choose one of these majors, you'll be in with that specialist in that particular area. 2024 live briefs were Spark, the All Blacks, Motat, Sony Music, and Auckland Museum. Had some really good fun, amazing outcomes this year, and hopefully that continues across all three. Some really excellent feedback from the people that we work with, and some really high profile outcomes. We work with the All Blacks on explainer videos. I'll show you an example of that in a second. Sony Music with a new band called Made You Look, who are new but made up with quite prominent New Zealand bands. I've been in quite prominent New Zealand bands in the past, and I've been signed to Sony Music, and so our students were tasked in launching them in terms of an identity and social media presence. Auckland Museum, bringing some of their interactivity to life in the museum, and Spark was about growing a presence for Māori, young Māori coming into creative tech. Some really nice outcomes from there as well. I will just play you a little teaser video of some of the outcomes that come from the All Blacks brief.
Hi, Jim. We can't see the video. We lost it.
All right.
Oh, we can't see the video.
Can't see the video?
Oh, sorry, that we can see it. I think my end I can't see. It's all good.
Oh, okay, sorry. I'll stop that there. So yeah, that was we were briefed in by Rugby New Zealand on behalf of the All Blacks to create these teaser videos for our students to explain the basic rules of rugby to an American market. So someone who's interested in gridiron, for example, American football. The All Blacks want to crack the American market. It's a much bigger market. And so that was part of the briefing process that went into our students there. Not an easy exercise, and they were quite early on in their motion design major in year 2, but pretty cool for their portfolio to be able to take something like that through. So just an example. Specializations, the content that you get taught will depend on what major you choose, although you will have an overview in year 1. But for example, if you go into interactive design, you'll learn HTML, CSS, you'll be using Figma to create front-end development outcomes, but you'll learn how to code, and you'll learn about user experience in depth, UX and CX, and also the technical parameters of being able to produce interactive experiences. If you come into motion design, you'll be taught advanced After Effects, Cinema 4D, Blender, a number of other things in graphic, Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign at a much more advanced level. And of course, all of the contextual and theoretical knowledge around those majors as well. You start off with a deep dive in term 1 in year 2 into your major, lots to learn, and through an 8-week period. will be here with us 5 days a week, attending these sessions, 3 hours a day. For those of you that are on in campus, will be in a session for 3 hours, and then they have an hour online. Whereas if you're online, you'll have 3-hour sessions, dialing into campus to that session. And you'll also have mentoring, and the mentoring happens sometimes within that session and also in the extra hour that we've got every day each week for interactive students as well. So essentially, you're going to be with us 3 or 4 hours of content every day. And then outside of that, there's also time to respond to the briefs that are currently at play. So deep dive in term 1. Term 2, you work on that group project. The All Blacks is an example of one of those projects there. That's you basically working as a motion designer, interactive designer, and a graphic designer, ordinarily working together as a team and responding to a real world live brief. And then in term 4, you do a mini capstone project, which is a mini research-driven project. Moving on into year 3, this is where you take all of the knowledge that you've learned within your second year. So lots of things in there that you can see designed to get you really good work in your portfolio. There's a group project, collaborative work, really important for the industry to demonstrate that you can do that. Live briefs, can you work within the parameters of a live brief constraint with a real world live client? Yes, that's in there, and other things. And so you've got that in your portfolios. When you come into year 3, you've sort of honed your skill sets, and you undertake another live brief, like a big major live brief in year 3, to form one of the cornerstones of your portfolio. You take a portfolio component so that you can get your portfolio up to scratch and get feedback, and play with your identity in that space. And then Capstone is a large 16-week major project that forms the cornerstone of your 3 years with us, essentially, and is a final major project. You dictate the parameters of that yourselves and come to us with a proposal, and you have mentorship and guidance along the way towards a final outcome. So some examples here of some of the work. Our awards tend to come from year 2 and year 3, most predominantly in year 3. Some of those group projects in year 2 also pick up awards. You're sort of honing your craft when you get into year 3, getting a lot of guidance on getting your portfolio together, those major projects. There's a couple of examples here on screen. There's a gold that picked up the best awards, gold for moving image this year, and picked up a lot of silvers and a few bronze. I will just play a quick example of one of those group projects for you guys. So what's happening here is a project about coral bleaching. So these students were investigating coral bleaching and education around it. So the idea is you come to this little interactive installation, you pick up the model of the coral itself, you place that on an analog panel. There's some sliders, and there is a 3D hologram at the top that shows you a 3D rendition of that particular coral. and you play with some parameters and learn about coral bleaching. Once you've learned that your parameters get encoded into that particular piece of coral, the model, and then it's placed back into the model of the rest of the coral, and then lights up the rest of the coral. So it's a bit of a learning exercise for, let's say you were there, if I was there with my kids, they would be picking up these things and learning about it and then putting it back and seeing how the effects of what they've tailored that particular piece of coral and bringing it back to life have. This is another video. I'm just going to sort of play it and I'll talk a little bit over the top of it, but this is the goal that one of our students achieved for motion design. So last one we looked at was a group project about coral bleaching. This one is this student producing his final capstone project. So this student suffered with anxiety and has done for a long time. So they decided to base their final major outcome on telling a story around anxiety. So it's a fictitious story that picked up gold at this year's festivals. Here we go. Quick example of where some of our students are at after they graduate. So I've just sort of put together a compilation. This is Jeremy McDonald. He's currently in New York. He was at In-House, which are a prestigious design agency here in Auckland. Arch runs that agency. Jeremy is since working in New York now as a designer, but produced this concept for his final major project in year 3, Wow Box, picked up a couple of golds at the Best Awards. Jason Barnes, one of our graduates, came out of this program, worked at TVNZ for a number of years across all sorts of different channel idents and intros to shows, picked up a silver for Moving Image at Best Awards a few years ago. This is Sana McKay, who studied graphic design with us and is now working at Mark's Design with Manuel Papin and picked up a silver and a bronze Toitianga Awards and also an International Creative Pool Award as well for their outcome. And finally, just a little bit of information about the actual intakes that we have. So we have an intake on the 19th of February. It's our next intake in 2025. Academic calendars on screen at the moment, but we also have a intake on the 15th of July. And you can study on campus with us here in the Wynyard Quarter. or you can study online. So you can study completely remotely online, and we have students who do so from Australia, from Wellington, and all sorts of other places who dial into sessions that we run here at Media Design School. You can apply online through our website or on campus and come and see one of our campus advisors, one of our program advisors. And the admission requirements are ordinarily university entrance into the degree. There are some other specifications around that, or caveats, I guess, should I say. If you're over 20, then you don't need university entrance, or if you have things like an excellence in art and design subject, and at level 2 or above, and you have a portfolio rated in the sort of A range, then you can also get admission into the program. I'll just have a quick look and see if we've got any questions here. We'll come to an end. Oh, thanks. Sabrina's just sort of loaded up a couple of our little flyers around graphic motion interactive design, and I think prospectus in there. So thank you. I'm not sure if, I'll just leave this up on the screen at the moment, but if there's anyone who's got any questions, please do fire them in the chat. Well, Sabrina or I will attempt to answer them. Later on, we do have a domestic and international session for anyone. Let's say, for example, there's international students and they have questions specifically on that. You can dial into those sessions and ask questions there as well. One thing I might add into the chat here, just in case anyone had any difficulty with those videos, is a couple of examples, more than a couple of examples of some student outcomes from the BEST Awards. So what I encourage you to do, if you're interested in coming to Media Design School, or really any other school, is to look at the BEST Awards. For example, look at the outcomes from that program, see what kind of outcomes are coming out of that program across things that you're interested in, whether that be motion, interactive, graphic design, and have a look at the quality of work that's coming out. And I've posted some in for you guys to have a look in a bit more in depth and thorough explanation of those projects that I've done today. Cool. Unless we've got any questions. Got a couple of minutes left if anyone wants to ask anything. Otherwise, I guess we'll just wrap this session up.
Many thanks, Jim, Mary, for doing this session. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to ask Jim, or you can join our next session for the admissions for domestic and international queries later today. We also have other programs running after the session for Bachelors of Software Engineering, if you would like to attend those. Yeah, thank you so much, Jim, for your session.
Awesome. Thank you to you guys.
Thank you, everyone.